A dentist lies dead, a pistol by his side. Is it suicide, or a sinister cover-up? Hercule Poirot steps into a web of lies, where a silver buckle, a vanished actress, and a financier's dark secret unravel a deadly rhyme. Who is a woman in the feathered hat, fleeing into the fog? What truth hides in a locked diary, sealed with red wax? From London's streets to a grand estate, murders multiply, and shadows whisper of a royal scandal. Can Poirot solve the puzzle before the nursery? Rhyme claims another life. Chapter 1, 2. Buckle my shoother. London morning unfurled like a damp grey scarf, its edges frayed with mist and the faint tang of coal smoke. Hercule Poirot adjusted his pristine Homburg hat, his gloved fingers brushing the brim as he stepped onto Queen Charlotte Street. His polished shoes clicked against the cobblestones, a metronome to the city's pulse, horse carts clattering, vendors hawking, and the distant chime of Big Ben slicing through the fog. The air was crisp, October's breath sharp against his neatly trimmed mustache, which quivered slightly as he exhaled. A dentist's appointment was not Poirot's idea of a splendid start to the day, but ordered demanded maintenance, even of one's teeth. Dr. Henry Morley's office occupied a narrow Georgian building, its black door gleaming like a butler's polished boots. Poirot ascended the steps, his cane tapping lightly, and entered a waiting room that smelled of antiseptic and wax polish. The receptionist, a young woman with a pinched expression, glanced up from her ledger. "Monsieur Poirot, you're early. The doctor will see you shortly." Her voice was clipped, her eyes darting to a clock above the fireplace. Poirot inclined his head, settling into a stiff leather chair, his grey eyes scanning the room with the precision of a watchmaker. Across from him sat a man in a tailored suit, his broad shoulders and heavy jaw marking him as Alastair Blunt, the financier whose name graced every major bank in London. Blunt's fingers drummed on a newspaper, his gaze fixed on some invisible horizon. Nearby, a wiry man with slicked-back hair and a Mediterranean complexion, Mr. Ambriotus, Poirot deduced from the receptionist's ledger, fidgeted with a gold cigarette case, his eyes darting like a fox in a henhouse. A third figure, a young man with a fiery glint in his eyes, slouched against the wall, his tie askew. Howard Rakes, Poirot noted, recalling whispers of the American activist's radical speeches in Hyde Park. The door swung open, admitting a woman whose nervous energy seemed to hum like a plucked string. Mabel Sainsbury Seal, her name announced, in a breathless rush as she greeted the receptionist, was a faded star of the stage, her auburn curls pinned haphazardly beneath a feathered hat. Her dress, once elegant, hung loosely, and her hands fluttered as she spoke. "Oh, I do hope Dr. Morley can see me soon. My tooth. You see, it's been such a bother." Her voice carried the cadence of a bygone era, all theatrical flourish and tremulous charm. Poirot's lips twitched upward. People, he mused, were like books, their covers worn but their pages brimming with secrets. He observed Mabel as she rummaged in her handbag, her movements jerky. A glint caught his Argyle silver shoebuckle, ornate and old-fashioned, slipped from her bag and clattered to the floor. Before she could react, Poirot was on his feet, his movements graceful despite the slight ache in his knees. He retrieved the buckle, its filigree catching the dim light, and presented it to her with a bow. "Oh my goodness, how clumsy of me," Mabel exclaimed, her cheeks flushing. "Thank you, sir, you're too kind. This old thing, it's from my days in India, you know, part of a costume. I carry it for luck. Silly habit." Her laugh was high and brittle, her eyes avoiding his. Poirot's smile remained fixed, but his mind whirred, India a detail to tuck away, like a card up his sleeve. "Madame, it is no trouble," he said, his French accent softening the words. "A buckle so fine deserves care. May it bring you the luck you seek." Mabel's fingers closed around the buckle, her grip tight, and she murmured thanks before retreating to a chair, her hands twisting in her lap. The receptionist called Poirot's name, and he entered the surgery, where Dr. Morley awaited, a stout man with a brisk manner and a mustache that rivaled Poirot's own, though less meticulously groomed. The dentist's tools gleamed on a tray, and Poirot suppressed a shudder as he settled into the chair. "Just a cleaning, Monsieur Poirot," Morley said, his tone professional but distracted. "Though I must say, your teeth are in fine order. A man of discipline, order, doctor, is the foundation of all things," Poirot replied, his eyes fixed on the ceiling as the drill hummed to life. The procedure was mercifully brief, but Poirot noted Morley's eyeliness. His hands trembled slightly, and his banter lacked its usual warmth. As Poirot rose, adjusting his tie, he caught Morley glancing at a telegram on his desk. Its edges crumpled. "Something troubles you, doctor?" Poirot asked, his tone light but probing. Morley started, then forced a smile. "Oh, just a busy day. Patience, you know." "Good day, Monsieur Poirot." The dismissal was polite but firm, and Poirot exited, his mind cataloguing the dentist's unease. Back on the street, the fog had thickened, wrapping the city in a gauzy shroud. Poirot paused to adjust his scarf when a cry broke the silence. Mabel Sainsbury Seal, hurrying down the steps, stumbled, her handbag spilling its contents. Another buckle twin to the first rolled into the gutter. Poirot, ever the gentleman, retrieved it, noting its identical design. "Madame, you are most fortunate. I am here to rescue your treasures," he said, handing it back. Her laugh was strained, her eyes darting to the street. "Oh, you're too kind, really. I must be off. A lunch appointment, you see." She clutched the buckle, her fingers white-knuckled, and hurried into the fog. Her silhouette swallowed by the mist. Poirot's mustache twitched. 2 buckles, both from India, both carried for luck. The coincidence was no coincidence at all. He made a mental note to inquire about Mabel Sainsbury's seal, her theatrical past, and her connection to the subcontinent. But before he could ponder further, a familiar figure emerged from a cab. Chief Inspector Japp, his face grim beneath his bowler hat. "Monsieur Poirot," Japp called, his voice cutting through the street's din. "A word, if you please. It's urgent." The inspector's usual joviality was absent, his eyes shadowed with worry. Poirot's heart quickened, sensing the weight of what was to come. They retreated to a nearby tea shop. Its windows steamed from the warmth within. Over a pot of Earl Grey, Japp leaned forward, his voice low. "It's Morley Poirot. He's dead. Found in his surgery not an hour ago, pistol by his side. Looks like suicide, but—" He trailed off, his fingers tapping the table, eyes narrowed, his mind replaying the morning, the waiting room, Morley's unease, the telegram. "Suicide, you say? Nan non mon ami." The good doctor was not a man to end his own life. His hands, they trembled. "Yes, but with worry, not despair." "And the telegram, did you see it?" Japp frowned, pulling a notebook from his coat. "Telegram? No, but we found a pistol, a bullet through his temple, and the door locked from the inside. Clean case, or so it seems. But I know that look of yours, Poirot. You smell something off, don't you?" Poirot sipped his tea, the porcelain warm against his fingers. "The scent, Inspector, is that of murder dressed in suicide's clothing. The patients this morning, blunt Ambriotus rakes, and Madame Sainsbury's sealage carries a story. And the buckle, oh, the buckle. It shines too brightly to be mere chance." Japp groaned, but a spark of trust flickered in his eyes. "You and your hunches. All right, what's this about a buckle?" Poirot recounted the incident with Mabel, his voice measured but laced with excitement. 2 buckles, identical, from India. She was nervous, Inspector, as if the buckle were a talisman or a secret. And Morley, he was distracted, perhaps by that telegram. "We must learn who sent it and why." Japp scribbled in his notebook, then leaned back. "You're saying someone staged Morley's death? But why? He's just a dentist, not some mastermind." "Every man, mon ami, is a mastermind of his own secrets," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "Morley saw many this morning. Men and women of power and shadow. One of them, I wager, wished his silence." The tea shop's bell jingled as a customer entered, bringing a gust of cold air. Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the mornings, fragments, blunt, stoic demeanor, Ambriotus, furtive glances, Rake's restless energy, and Mabel's trembling hands. The buckle, with its intricate silverwork, seemed to pulse in his memory, a clue begging to be understood. Japp drained his cup and stood. "I'll have the boys check the surgery again. Look for that telegram." "But Poirot, if this is murder, we're dealing with a clever one. Locked room, no witnesses, tricky business." Poirot rose, his cane tapping the floor. "Tricky, yes, but not impossible. The little grey cells, they are already at work. I shall return to Queen Charlotte Street, observe the scene, and speak with the staff. The truth, it hides in the details." As they parted, the fog seemed to thicken, cloaking London in mystery. Poirot walked back to Morley's office, his steps deliberate, his mind alight with possibilities. The waiting room was empty now, the receptionist gone, but the air held a lingering tension, as if the walls themselves whispered of secrets. He stood where Mabel had dropped her buckle, picturing her nervous smile, her hurried departure. The buckle was no mere trinket, it was a key, though, to what lock he did not yet know. He climbed the stairs to Morley's surgery, now cordoned off by a constable. The door was ajar, revealing the sterile room where death had struck. Poirot's eyes swept over the scene. The dental chair, the tray of tools, the desk where the telegram had lain. He stepped closer, his gloved hand hovering over the desk. But the telegram was gone, likely taken by Japp's men or someone else. His gaze fell to the floor, where a faint scuff mark marred the polished wood, as if a shoe had scraped in haste. Outside, the constable shifted, his breath visible in the cold. "Sir, you shouldn't be in there," he said, but Poirot waved him off with a disarming smile. "A moment, my friend. I am but a guest of the truth." The constable hesitated, then nodded, clearly outmatched by Poirot's charm. Alone again, Poirot closed his eyes, letting the room speak. Morley's death was no act of despair, but a calculated move, a piece in a larger game. The buckle, the telegram, the patient soul were threads in a tapestry he would unravel. He stepped back into the street, the fog curling around him like a conspirator. As he hailed a cab, Poirot's resolve hardened. "To Whitehaven Mansions," he told the driver, his voice firm. He would begin with Mabel Sainsbury's seal, her buckles, and her secrets. The nursery rhyme echoed in his mind. 1, 2, buckle my shoe, a child's chant, masking a killer's intent. This was no ordinary case. But Hercule Poirot was no ordinary man. The game had begun, and he would play it to the end. Satisfying end. Poirot's decision to pursue the mystery, armed with the clue of Mabel's buckle and the suspicion of murder. It sets a thrilling course for the investigation, leaving listeners eager for what lies ahead. Chapter 2, 3, 4. Shut the door. The fog clung to London like a jealous lover, its tendrils curling around the gaslights of Queen Charlotte Street. Hercule Poirot stood before Dr. Henry Morley's office, his cane planted firmly on the cobblestones, his grey eyes piercing the mist. The black door, once gleaming, now seemed a sentinel guarding secrets, its brass knocker glinting dully in the late morning light. The news of Morley's death, reported as suicide but suspected by Poirot to be murder, had set his little grey cells ablaze. The door, locked at the time of the discovery, was both a barrier and a clue. Whispering of a truth sealed within, Poirot adjusted his overcoat, the chill seeping through his gloves, and ascended the steps. The constable guarding the entrance, a ruddy-faced youth with a nervous tic, straightened at his approach. "Monsieur Poirot, sir," Inspector Japp said. "You might come, but it's a crime scene now." See, his voice wavered, caught between duty and deference. Poirot's mustache curved in a reassuring smile. "Fear not, my young friend. Hercule Poirot does not disturb the scene. He illuminates it. A brief look, and I shall be gone, like a shadow in the fog." The constable hesitated, then stepped aside, muttering about orders. Inside, the waiting room was a mausoleum of silence, the leather chairs empty, the fireplace cold. The receptionist's desk, where Poirot had seen the pinched-faced Miss Neville yesterday, was abandoned, her ledger closed. He moved toward the surgery door, its lock now broken by Japp's men, and stepped into the room where death had struck. The air was heavy with antiseptic and something darker, fear, perhaps, or deceit. The dental chair loomed like a throne of judgment, its leather worn but clean. The tray of tools gleamed untouched since Morley's last patient. On the desk, papers were scattered, but the telegram Poirot had glimpsed was gone, likely claimed by the police or someone else. His eyes swept the room, cataloguing details with surgical precision. A faint smudge on the windowpane, a scuff on the floor near the chair, a single drop of ink on the desk, as if a pen had been dropped in haste. He knelt, his knees protesting, and examined the scuff. It was narrow, deliberate, not the careless drag of a shoe, but the mark of something dragged, perhaps a case, or a body. His fingers traced the air above it, as if coaxing the truth from the wood. A cough interrupted his reverie. In the doorway stood a woman, her apron starched, her face pale as the fog outside. "Sir, you shouldn't be here," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I'm Agnes Fletcher, the maid. The police said no one's to touch anything." Poirot rose, his movements fluid despite the ache in his joints. "Mademoiselle Fletcher, I am Hercule Poirot, a friend of the truth. I seek only to understand what happened to Dr. Morley. You knew him well." Agnes's eyes darted to the floor, her hands twisting the hem of her apron. "He was a good man, sir, kind, but strict, never hurt a soul." Her voice cracked, and Poirot noted the flicker of fear in her gaze. "Yet someone hurt him," he said gently, stepping closer. "You were here yesterday, were you not, before the tragedy? Did you see anything unusual, a visitor perhaps, or a sound?" Agnes hesitated, her lips parting as if to speak, then closing. I don't know, sir. It was a busy morning. Patients in and out, Miss Neville at her desk, Dr. Riley in his office upstairs." Her words tumbled out, too quick, like pebbles down a slope. Poirot's eyes softened, but his mind sharpened. "And Miss Neville, she was here all morning. No absences, no errands." Agnes flushed, her fingers tightening. She stepped out, sir, just for a bit. Said she had a telegram to send, urgent-like, came back all flustered, but that's her way." "A telegram?" Poirot's pulse quickened, but his face remained serene. "And this telegram, did you see it or hear of its contents?" "No, sir, I'm just the maid. I clean, I don't pry." Her tone was defensive, but her eyes betrayed a secret, hovering, like a moth at a flame. Poirot nodded, filing the information away. "Merci, mademoiselle. You have been most helpful. If you recall anything else, you will tell me." He handed her a card, his name embossed in elegant script, and she tucked it into her apron, her hands trembling. As Agnes retreated, Poirot turned back to the room, his mind racing. A telegram sent by Miss Neville, another glimpsed on Morley's desk, coincidence none, and the door, locked when Morley was found, suggested a killer who knew the officer's rhythms, someone who could slip in and out unnoticed. He stepped to the window, pushing it open to let the fog's damp breath curl inside. Below, the street was a blur of shadows, but a figure lingered across the way, a man, hat low, coat collar up, watching the building. Poirot's eyes narrowed, but before he could act, the man melted into the mist. A knock at the outer door announced Chief Inspector Japp, his face flushed from the cold. "Poirot, you're poking about already. Found anything?" He strode in, his boots heavy on the floorboards. "Clues, mon ami, are like breadcrumbs in a forest," Poirot replied, closing the window. "One must follow them carefully. The maid, Agnes, speaks of a telegram sent by Miss Neville. and the scuff on the floor it is not what it seems. Tell me, what have your men found? Japp sighed, pulling out his notebook. Not much to cheer us. The pistols registered to Morley, no prints but his. Door was locked, key inside. But here's the kicker, another death. That Greek fellow Ambriotis, one of Morley's patients yesterday, found in his hotel room dead as a doornail. Coroner says it's an overdose of anesthetic, likely from his appointment. Looks like Morley botched the dose, then shot himself out of guilt. Poirot's mustache twitched, a storm brewing behind his calm facade. Guilt, Nan, Inspector. This is no accident, nor suicide. Ambriotis, he was nervous yesterday. A man with secrets, perhaps a blackmailer. And Morley, he was uneasy, distracted by a telegram. We must find it, and we must find Miss Neville. Japp frowned, flipping through his notes. Miss Neville's gone missing, didn't show up today, and her flat's empty. But we've got her boyfriend in custody. Carter, a shifty sort, works odd jobs, bit of a temper. He was seen arguing with Morley last week. Something about money. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Carter, you say? And where was he yesterday? Claims he was at the pub, but no one's confirmed it yet. We're holding him for questioning. Japp paused, his brow furrowing. You think he's our man? Poirot tilted his head, his fingers tracing the brim of his hat. A possibility, but too simple, too neat. The door, Inspector. It was locked from the inside. Carter, he is no locksmith. No, we seek someone clever, someone who knows how to shut the door on truth. Japp grunted, unconvinced but willing to follow Poirot's lead. All right, I'll have the boys track down that telegram and check Neville's flat again. But what's your next move? Poirot's gaze drifted to the surgery door, its lock a silent challenge. I shall speak with Dr. Riley, Morley's partner. He was here yesterday, upstairs. Perhaps he heard or saw something. And Mabel Sainsbury sealed her buckles, her nerves. They nagged me. I shall find her too. They stepped outside, the fog thicker now, swallowing the streets. Edges. Japp headed for his car, promising updates, while Poirot lingered, his eyes scanning the pavement. A glint caught his attention, a tiny silver thread, caught in a crack between cobblestones. He knelt, retrieving it with tweezers from his pocket. It was fine, almost invisible, like a strand from a woman's scarf or a costume. Mabel, perhaps, or another player in this deadly game. He tucked the thread into a small envelope, his mind worried. The door to Morley's surgery was shut, but the door to the truth was ajar, and Poirot would pry it open. He hailed a cab, directing the driver to Dr. Riley's office nearby, a modern building with a brass plaque announcing George Riley DDS inside. The waiting room was brighter than Morley's, with plush chairs and a vase of wilting roses. Riley, a lean man with a roguish grin, greeted Poirot with a handshake that lingered too long. Monsieur Poirot, the great detective. What do I owe the pleasure? Riley's Irish lilt was warm, but his eyes were sharp, assessing Poirot. Smiled, his demeanor disarming. A tragedy, Doctor. Your partner, Dr. Morley, is dead, and I seek the truth. You were here yesterday, were you not? What did you see, or hear, from your office above? Riley's grin faded, his fingers drumming. On his desk a terrible thing, Morley's death. I was upstairs, yes, working on accounts. Heard nothing unusual, just patients coming and going. The usual clatter. Morley was a good man, but private. Kept his troubles to himself. And Miss Neville? Poirot pressed, his voice soft but insistent. She sent a telegram yesterday, I am told. Did she mention it to you? Riley's eyes flickered, a shadow crossing his face. Neville. She's a nervous sort, always fussing. Said something about an errand, but I didn't pry my jobs, teeth not gossip. His tone was light, but Poirot sensed a wall, carefully built, yet gossip. Doctor often hides truth, Poirot said, rising. If you recall anything as sound, a visitor, you will tell me. He handed Riley his card, noting the man's slight flinch. As Poirot left, the fog seemed to press closer, a conspirator in the mystery. He paused, his mind replaying Agnes's hesitation, Riley's guarded charm, the missing telegram, and the silver thread. Ambriotis's death was no accident, nor was Morley's. The door to the surgery had been shut, locking in a lie, but Poirot was determined to open it. He would find Miss Neville, trace the telegram, and follow the thread and figurative to its source. In his cab, bound for Mabel Sainsbury Seal's hotel, Poirot leaned back, his eyes half closed. The nursery rhyme echoed in his mind. 3-4. Shut the door. The killer had closed one door, but Poirot would open another, revealing the shadows within. The case was no longer a single death but a tapestry of deceit, and he was its weaver. Satisfying end. The discovery of the telegram sent by Miss Neville, coupled with Ambriotis's death and the mysterious silver thread, deepens the conspiracy, giving Poirot clear leads to pursue and leaving listeners eager for the next unraveling of the mystery. Chapter 356. Pick up sticks. The London fog had retreated, leaving a crisp October sky that shimmered like polished glass. Hercule Poirot stood outside Alistair Blunt's grand residence in Chelsea, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his cane a silent sentinel by his side. The financier's home was a fortress of red brick and ivy, its windows glinting with the confidence of wealth. Poirot's investigation into Dr. Henry Morley's staged suicide and the suspicious death of Ambriotis had led him here, to the heart of power, where secrets lay scattered like sticks in a child's game. 5-6 pick up sticks. The nursery rhyme hummed in his mind, urging him to gather the fragments of truth. The butler, a gaunt man with eyes like polished marbles, ushered Poirot into a drawing room where crystal chandeliers cast rainbows on mahogany panels. Alistair Blunt sat by a roaring fire, his broad shoulders relaxed but his gaze sharp, like a hawk assessing its prey. Across from him, Jane Oliveira, his niece, lounged with the grace of a panther, her dark hair coiled tightly, her eyes flashing with defiance. Howard Raikes, the American activist Poirot had glimpsed at Morley's office, stood by a window, his lean frame taut, his fingers twitching as if itching for a fight. The air crackled with unspoken tensions, a stage set for revelations. "Monsieur," Poirot Blunt said, rising with a politician's smile, "an unexpected pleasure to you." His voice was smooth, but Poirot caught the faint tightening of his jaw. "Nan, merci," Poirot replied, his accent a velvet blade. "I come not for tea, but for truth. The death of Dr. Morley, it is no suicide, and the death of Monsieur Ambriotis, no accident. You were at the surgery that morning, Monsieur Blunt. What did you see?" Blunt's smile held, but his eyes flickered. "A tragedy, nothing more. Morley was a fine dentist, if a bit dour. I had my appointment, left and heard the news later. As for Ambriotis, I barely noticed him." Jane's laugh cut through the room, sharp as a shard of glass. "Oh, come now, Uncle Alistair. You notice everyone. It's how you stay on top, isn't it?" Her tone was teasing, but her gaze was a challenge, aimed at both Blunt and Poirot. Poirot turned to her, his grey eyes piercing. "Mademoiselle Oliveira, you were not at the surgery, yet you know much, I think. Your friend Monsieur Raikes was there. Perhaps he shared his observations." Raikes spun from the window, his face flushed. "I didn't see a damn thing worth noting. Just a waiting room full of stuffed shirts and a nervous old actress dropping her trinkets. Morley was alive when I left, and that's all I've got to say." Poirot's mustache twitched, sensing the heat behind Raikes' words. "And Mademoiselle Sainsbury Seal, the actress with her buckles, she was nervous. Did she speak to you, perhaps of India, or of secrets?" Raikes snorted, but Jane leaned forward, her voice low. "She babbled about her days on the stage, some play in Calcutta, kept clutching that silly buckle like it was her lifeline. I thought she was just eccentric, but Howard said she seemed scared. Didn't you?" Raikes shot her a warning look, but Poirot pounced. "Scared? Monsieur Raikes of what, or whom?" "Nothing specific," Raikes muttered, his eyes sliding away. "She was jumpy, that's all. Kept looking over her shoulder, like someone was watching." Poirot filed the detail away, his mind a ledger of clues. Mabel Sainsbury Seal's fear, her buckles, her India connection. The sticks were piling up, but the pattern remained elusive. He turned back to Blunt. "Monsieur, life is one of influence. Enemies, perhaps, or secrets from your past in India that might draw danger." Blunt's face hardened, but before he could reply, the butler announced dinner. The group moved to a dining room where a long table gleamed with silver and crystal. Jane's mother, Julia Oliveira, joined them, her regal bearing softened by a nervous tick in her fingers. The meal was a study in contrasts. Blunt's measured calm, Jane's barbed wit, Raikes' barely concealed disdain, and Julia's forced pleasantries. Poirot observed his fork poised like a conductor's baton, noting every glance, every pause. Over roasted pheasant, Jane turned to Poirot, her smile sly. "You're like a cat, Monsieur Poirot, watching us all, waiting for someone to trip. Do you think one of us killed that dentist?" Poirot's eyes twinkled, but his tone was grave. "Mademoiselle, I think only that truth is a shy creature, hiding in the shadows of words. You, for example, speak of Monsieur Raikes with passion, yet he is a man of radical ideas, ideas that might clash with your uncle's world." Raikes slammed his glass down, wine sloshing. "If you're accusing me, say it plain. I'm no murderer. I'm here to shake things up, not kill dentists." Blunt's voice was ice enough. "Raikes, your speeches in the park are trouble enough without dragging my family into it." Julia's hand fluttered to her pearls. "Alistair, please. Monsieur Poirot, we're respectable people. This business with Morley, it's dreadful, but it has nothing to do with us." Poirot smiled, but his mind was elsewhere, tracing the threads of the morning at Morley's office. The telegram, Miss Neville's absence, the silver thread he'd found, and now Mabel's ferule pointed to a web with Blunt at its center. As dessert was served, he excused himself, claiming a need for air, and slipped into the hallway. A servant directed him to a telephone where he called Chief Inspector Japon Ami. Poirot said, his voice low, "Have you found Mademoiselle Sainsbury Seal?" Jap's voice crackled through the line. "Not a trace. Her hotel rooms, empty, bed not slept in. We're checking the stations, but it's like she vanished into the fog. Found something else. The Morley's appointment book. Ambriotis was his last patient. And there's a note about a consult with someone called MS. Could be Mabel." Poirot's pulse quickened. MS we, and the telegram from Miss Neville. still hunting it. But Carter and Neville, boyfriend, he's singing a bit. Says he saw Maybelle leaving the surgery in a hurry, looking spooked. Claims he was nowhere near when Morley died, but his alibi's shaky. Mercy, Inspector, keep searching. I shall visit Maybelle's hotel myself. Poirot hung up, his mind alight. Maybelle Sainsbury's seal was a key, her disappearance a lock. He must open. He returned to the dining room where the mood had soured. Raikes was gone. Jane's eyes red-rimmed, and Blunt was speaking in low tones to Julia. Poirot took his leave, promising to return if needed, and stepped into the night. The air was sharp, the stars pinpricks above the city's glow. He hailed a cab to Mabel's hotel, a modest establishment near Covent Garden. Its sign faded but welcoming. The clerk, a wiry man with a pencil-thin mustache, eyed Poirot warily. Miss Sainsbury's seal. She hasn't been back since yesterday morning, left in a rush, didn't even settle her bill. He hesitated, then leaned forward. Odd thing, though. A man came asking for her last night, rough sort, wouldn't give. His name had a scar on his cheek, like a crescent moon. Poirot's heart skipped. This man, he left nothing behind, no message. The clerk shook his head, but pointed to a corner. Her room's up there, number 12. Police looked all ready, but you're welcome to try. Keys here. Poirot took the key, his fingers tingling with anticipation. The room was small, its wallpaper peeling, the air thick with the scent of lavender and dust. The bed was made, but a drawer hung open, its contents scattered. Poirot's eyes scanned the room, landing on a small writing desk. There, beneath a crumpled handkerchief, was a note, written in a trembling hand. Calcutta, 1910. A.B. knows, must tell someone. The initials A.B. Lester Blunt, and Calcutta, tying Maybelle to Blunt's past. He pocketed the note, his mind racing. The handkerchief bore a faint stained lipstick, perhaps, or something more sinister. He searched further, finding a theater program tucked under the mattress. Dated 1910, for a play in Calcutta starring Maybelle Sainsbury's seal. A photograph slipped out, showing a younger Maybelle with a man whose face was scratched out, but whose broad shoulders and heavy jaw were unmistakably Blunt's. The sticks were aligning, but the pattern was still incomplete. Maybelle's fear, her disappearance. The note they pointed to a secret Blunt guarded fiercely. Poirot left the room, locking it behind him, and returned to the clerk. This man with the scar, did he speak of Maybelle's plans? The clerk shrugged, just said he'd find her. Sounded angry. Didn't like the look of him. Poirot nodded, his mind conjuring the scarred man's shadow. Was he Carter, Neville's boyfriend, or another player? He stepped into the street, the city's pulse quickening with the night. A newsboy shouted headlines about Blunt's latest financial triumph, but Poirot's thoughts were elsewhere. The nursery rhyme whispered 5-6. Pick up sticks, and he felt the weight of each clue, each fragment of truth. He hailed another cab, directing it to Whitehaven Mansions, his home. There, in his orderly study, he spread his findings. The silver thread, the note, the photograph, the theater program, the buckles, Mabel's fear, Blunt's guarded demeanor, Raikes' anger, and now a scarred man. All were sticks in a game, with motive and murder. Amberiotis's overdose was no accident, nor was Morley's death. Someone had orchestrated both, and Maybelle was either a victim or a key. As he sipped a tisane, Poirot's eyes fell on the photograph. The face was a wound, a deliberate erasure. He traced the edges, his mind weaving connections. Calcutta, 1910. Blunt's rise to power had begun there, in the shadows of empire. Had Maybelle known him then, known something worth killing for? The note's words burned in his memory. A.B. knows. Knows what? A scandal, a crime, a secret marriage. The telephone rang, shattering the silence. Japp's voice was urgent. Poirot, we've got something. A telegram, found in a bin near Morley's office. Sent by Neville. All right, but it's odd, addressed to a postbox. No name, just initials. MS says, urgent, meet me at usual place. Danger. What do you make of it? Poirot's heart raced, but his voice was calm. It is Maybelle, Inspector. She is in danger, or she is the danger. Find that postbox, and we find her. And the scarred man, look for him. He is a shadow we cannot ignore. As he hung up, Poirot leaned back, his little grey cells humming. The door to Morley's surgery was shut, but the door to Maybelle's secrets was opening. He would follow the sticks, the note, the photograph, the telegram, until they formed a path to the truth. The game was growing darker, but Hercule Poirot was no stranger to shadows. Satisfying end, Maybelle's disappearance. The discovery of the note and photograph linking her to Blunt's past, and the telegram's cryptic message deepened the mystery, giving Poirot tangible leads and leaving listeners eager for the next chapter's revelations. Chapter 4:7-8. Lay them straight. The bells of St. Mary's Church tolled 7. Their solemn notes weaving through the London dusk like threads in a tapestry. Hercule Poirot sat in a pew, his gloved hands folded, his grey eyes fixed on the stained glass window where an angel's halo glowed amber in the fading light. The church, tucked in a quiet corner of Bloomsbury, was a sanctuary from the city's clamour, but Poirot's mind was no refuge. It churned with the fragments of Dr. Henry Morley's murder staged as suicide and Amberiotis's fatal overdose. alongside the vanishing of Mabel Sainsbury's seal, her silver buckles glinting in his memory like stars in a storm. The nursery rhymes, fourth line, 7, 8, lay them straight, whispered to him, urging order on the chaos of clues. A missing telegram, a silver thread, a Calcutta photograph, and a note hinting at Alistair Blunt's secrets. Poirot had come to St. Mary's not for prayer but for clarity. The church was a neutral ground, a place where suspects might lower their guards. He had invited Alistair Blunt, the financier whose shadow loomed over the case, along with his niece Jane Olivera, her lover Howard Raikes, and Jane's mother Julia Olivera. The invitation, sent under the guise of a memorial for Morley, was a gambit to observe their interactions, to see which threads of deceit might unravel under the weight of sanctity. The pews creaked as Blunt arrived, his broad frame filling the aisle, his face a mask of quiet authority. Jane followed, her dark eyes restless, a crimson scarf a slash of defiance against the church's muted tones. Raikes trailed her, his lean form bristling with barely contained energy, his gaze darting as if expecting an ambush. Julia entered, last, her silver hair swept elegantly, her hands clutching a prayer book with a tremor that betrayed her composure. Poirot rose, his cane tapping softly, and greeted them with a bow. Monsieur Blunt, Madame Monsieur Raikes, he said, his voice a velvet cord. I thank you for joining me to honor Dr. Morley. Yet, I confess, I seek also to understand his death, which was no act of despair, but of murder. Blunt's eyes narrowed, but his voice was steady. Murder, Poirot. The police say suicide. You're stirring waters that are already troubled. Jane's laugh was sharp, echoing off the stone walls. Oh, Uncle Alistair, let him stir. Maybe he'll find something you'd rather keep buried. Her tone was playful, but her eyes locked on Poirot, probing for his intent. Raikes stepped forward, his fists clenched. If you've got accusations, Poirot, spit them out. I'm tired of your cat-and-mouse games. Poirot's mustache twitched, his gaze serene but piercing. Patience. Monsieur Raikes, the truth is like a mosaic. It forms only when the pieces are laid straight. Let us sit, and perhaps the silence of this place will loosen tongues. They settled into a pew, the air thick with tension. The vicar's sermon began, a droning meditation on truth and redemption, but Poirot's ears caught a different rhythm. Rustle of Julia's prayer book, Raikes' restless tapping, Jane's sharp intake of breath when Blunt shifted closer. The sermon's cadence sparked an epiphany, like a kaleidoscope clicking into focus. The clues, buckles, telegrams, a silver thread, a Calcutta note were aligning, pointing to a pattern centered on Blunt's past. Poirot's mind raced, laying the sticks straight. Morley's death silenced a witness. Ambriotis's overdose eliminated a threat, and Mabel's disappearance hid a secret tied to India. As the sermon ended, Poirot led the group to a side chapel, its candles casting flickering shadows. Monsieur Blunt, he began, his voice low, your life in Calcutta, 1910, it holds a key, does it not? Mabel Sainsbury's seal knew you then. Her note, found in her hotel, speaks of a bee and a secret. Blunt's face remained impassive, but his fingers tightened on his hat. Mabel, a fleeting acquaintance, nothing more. She was an actress, always dramatic. If she wrote of secrets, it's her imagination, not fact. Julia's voice trembled. Monsieur Poirot, this is unseemly. Alistair is a respected man. Why drag up old theatrical nonsense? Jane's eyes flashed. Because someone's killing people, mother. Or haven't you noticed? Morley and Beriotis may be Mabel's next. And Uncle Alistair's always so calm, isn't he? Too calm, Raikes snorted, leaning against a pillar. She's right. Blunt's got the whole city in his pocket. Dentists don't just die when they work for him, unless someone's tying up loose ends. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the brewing storm. Accusations, they are easy. Proof, it is harder. Let us consider. Morley's surgery was locked, yet someone entered and left unseen. Ambriotis died of an overdose administered with precision. Mabel, she vanishes, leaving only a note and a photograph. Monsieur Blunt, where your face was scratched out. Blunt's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Poirot pressed on. I propose a theory. Morley knew something, perhaps, from a patient's records, that threatened a secret. Ambriotis, a man of shadows, perhaps a blackmailer, was silenced. Mabel, with her buckles and her memories, became a danger. The question is who benefits from their silence. The chapel fell silent, the candle's flames trembling. Julia clutched her prayer book, her knuckles white. Jane's gaze darted between Blunt and Raikes while Raikes stared at the floor, his breath uneven. Poirot's eyes missed nothing, noting the interplay of fear and defiance. He was about to speak when a soft cough echoed from the shadows. Agnes Fletcher, the maid from Morley's office, stepped into the light, her apron replaced by a plain coat, her face pale but resolute. Monsieur Poirot, I had to come. I heard you were here, and I couldn't stay silent no more. Poirot's heart quickened, but his voice was gentle. Mademoiselle Fletcher, your courage is admirable. What have you seen, or heard, that brings you here? Agnes's eyes darted to Blunt, then back to Poirot. It's about that morning, sir, when Dr. Morley died. I told you Miss Neville was out sending a telegram, but there's more. I saw Someone on the back stairs, just before I found the doctor. It was Frank Carter, Miss Neville's young man. He was creeping down, quiet-like, and I swear, sir, Dr. Morley was already dead when he passed me. The group froze. Blunt's face was stone, but Jane gasped, and Rakes took a step toward Agnes, his voice low. You're sure it was Carter, not someone else? Agnes nodded, her hands twisting. I know Frank. He's got that scar on his cheek, like a crescent, but he looked scared, not guilty. Said he was just dropping off a letter for Miss Neville, but I don't believe it. Poirot's mind raced, the sticks aligning. Carter seen near the surgery linked to the missing Miss Neville. The telegram, the silver thread, Mabel's note all pointed to a conspiracy, with Blunt at its heart. Mademoiselle, you have done well to speak. This scar, describe it again. Like a crescent moon, sir, on his left cheek. He tried to hide it, pulling his cap low. Agnes's voice steadied, her fear giving way to resolve. Poirot turned to Blunt. Monsieur, you know this Carter, perhaps? A man with a scar, seen where he should not be. Blunt's eyes were cold. I don't consort with the likes of Carter. If he's involved, it's his own doing, not mine. Jane's voice cut in, sharp. Oh, please, uncle, you've got men like Carter running errands all over London. Don't play the St. Julia's. Voice rose shrill. Jane, stop it. Monsieur Poirot, this is nonsense. We're here to mourn, not to be accused. Poirot raised a hand, his calm a beacon. In the storm, no accusations, madame, only questions. Mademoiselle Fletcher, you have my card. If more comes to you, you will call. Agnes nodded, slipping back into the shadows. The group dispersed, Blunt's silence heavy, Jane's eyes blazing, Rakes muttering under his breath. Poirot lingered, his gaze on the angel's halo in the window. The sticks were straighter now. Carter's presence, Agnes's testimony, Mabel's note, and Blunt's guarded past formed a pattern. But the pattern was incomplete, a puzzle missing its final piece. Outside, the night was crisp, the stars sharp above the city's haze. Poirot hailed a cab to Scotland Yard, where Japp awaited in his cluttered office. The inspector's desk was strewn with papers. A half-eaten sandwich perched precariously on a file. Poirot, you look like a cat with a canary. What's new? Poirot settled into a chair, his cane across his knees. The maid, Agnes Fletcher, has spoken. Frank Carter was at Morley's office, on the back stairs, before the body was found. He has a scar, mon ami, like the man seen with Mabel, and she claims Morley was already dead when Carter passed her. Japp's eyebrows shot up. Carter? He's in a cell, still swearing he was at a pub. No one backs his story. You think he's our killer? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Nan, he is a pawn, perhaps, but not the hand that moves him. The telegram, Japp, have you traced it? Japp rifled through his papers, pulling out a crumpled sheet. Found it in a bin, like I said. Sent by Miss Neville to a postbox. Initials. MS. Meet me at usual place. Danger, we're checking the postbox, but it's a dead end so far. Poirot leaned forward, his fingers steepled. Mabel is the key, Inspector. Her note speaks of Calcutta, of Alistair Blunt knowing something. The photograph, with his face scratched out, it is no coincidence. We must find her, and we must watch Carter. Japp nodded, scribbling notes. I'll put a man on the postbox, and squeeze Carter harder. But Poirot, if Blunt's involved, it's big. He's untouchable, practically runs the country's finances. No one is untouchable to the truth, Poirot said, rising. I shall return to Mabel's hotel, seek more traces of her, and Carter bring him to me tomorrow. His scar, it tells a story. The cab ride to Whitehaven Mansions was quiet, the city's lights blurring past. In his study, Poirot spread his clues on his desk. The silver thread, Mabel's note, the Calcutta photograph, the theatre program. He sketched a timeline, laying the sticks straight. Morley's death at 10. Ambriotis's overdose by noon. Mabel's disappearance that afternoon. Carter on the stairs. The telegram sent by Miss Neville. The pattern pointed to Blunt, but the why eluded him. A secret from Calcutta, worth killing for money, power, or something deeper. As he sipped a tisane, Poirot's eyes fell on the photograph. The scratched-out face was a wound, a deliberate act of erasure. He traced the edges, his mind weaving connections. Carter's presence, Agnes's fear, Blunt's calmed. They were threads in a web, and Poirot was closing in. The nursery rhyme sang softly 7-8, lay them straight in. He felt the truth aligning, piece by piece. Satisfying end. Agnes's revelation about Carter's presence and the confirmation of the telegram's contents provide Poirot with a clear path forward, deepening the conspiracy around Blunt and Mabel, and leaving listeners eager for the next chapter's unraveling. Chapter 5, 9, 10. A big fat hen. The countryside beyond London unfolded in a patchwork of green and gold. The October sun gilding the fields as Hercule Poirot's cab wound its way toward Alistair Blunt's country estate in Kent. The air was crisp, scented with hay and wood smoke, a stark contrast to the city's fog and secrets. Poirot's gloved fingers tapped his cane, his grey eyes scanning the horizon. The nursery rhymes, 5th line, 9, 10. A big fat hen, hummed in his mind. conjuring the image of a bloated secret, plump with danger, waiting to be plucked. Dr. Henry Morley's murder, staged as suicide, Amberiotis's lethal overdose, and Mabel Sainsbury Seal's vanishing act were threads in a web, and Blunt's estate promised new clues to unravel the conspiracy. Poirot's investigation had gained momentum since his encounter at St. Mary's Church, where Agnes Fletcher's revelation about Frank Carter's presence on the back stairs had sharpened his focus. The telegram sent by Miss Neville, Mabel's note hinting at Blunt's Calcutta past, and the scratched-out photograph with sticks laid straight, pointing to a secret worth killing for. Carter, with his crescent scar, was a pawn, but who was the master? Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, sensing the estate held answers. The cab pulled up to a rotine gate, beyond which sprawled a manor of honey-coloured stone, its chimneys piercing the sky like sentinels. A butler, stiff as a chess-piece, led Poirot through a hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced Blunts, their eyes tracking him. In the drawing-room, Alistair Blunt stood by a window, his broad frame silhouetted against the garden's autumn blaze. A woman, introduced as Helen Montreza, Blunt's distant cousin, sat by the fire, her auburn hair tightly pinned, her gaze guarded. Her presence was new, a puzzle piece Poirot hadn't expected. Monsieur Poirot, Blunt said, his voice smooth but edged with steel. You're persistent. I assume this isn't a social call. Poirot's moustache twitched, his smile disarming. Nan, monsieur, I come to gather truths, as one gathers eggs from a hen. Dr. Morley's death, Amberiotis's overdose, Mabel Sainsbury Seal's disappearance, they are linked, and the trail leads here, to your past. Helen's fingers tightened on her teacup, her eyes flickering to Blunt. Alistair's past. Surely you're mistaken, Monsieur Poirot. He's a man of duty, not secrets. Poirot inclined his head, his gaze piercing. Mademoiselle Montresor, all men have secrets, as all hens have eggs. Yours, I think, are not so distant from his. You are new to this household, yet your presence feels significant. Blunt's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, a shout shattered the calm. From the garden came a commotion, servants running, a dog barking. Poirot followed Blunt and Helen outside, where a knot of gardeners stood around a young man sprawled in the grass, a pistol gleaming beside him. It was Frank Carter, his crescent scar vivid in the sunlight, his face pale with shock. He tried to shoot me, a gardener bellowed, pointing at Carter. I found him skulking by the roses, gun in hand. Carter scrambled to his feet, his voice hoarse. I didn't shoot. I found the gun there, I swear. Someone's setting me up. His eyes darted to Poirot, pleading. You, the detective, you know I'm not a killer. Poirot's eyes narrowed, taking in the scene. The pistol, a sleek Webley, lay in the grass, its barrel cold. The gardener, a burly man with dirt-stained hands, glared at Carter, while Blunt's face was a mask of controlled fury. Helen hovered, her expression unreadable, her fingers twisting a silver ring. Poirot knelt, examining the gun without touching it. No smell of powder, no warmth and fired, but placed deliberately. Calm, Monsieur Carter, Poirot said, rising. You claim you found this gun. Where, precisely? Carter pointed to a rosebush, its thorns sharp, right there, tangled in the branches. I was weeding, saw it glint, and picked it up. Then this oaf started yelling. The gardener bristled, but Blunt raised a hand. Enough, Carter, you're fired. Poirot, this is a police matter now. I won't have chaos on my estate. Poirot's voice was soft but firm. Nan, Monsieur Blunt, this is no chaos but a clue. The gun, it is a plant, like your roses, meant to incriminate. Monsieur Carter, you were at Morley's surgery. Before his death. What were you doing there? Carter's scar twitched, his eyes wide. I told the police I was dropping a letter for Gladys Miss Neville. I didn't go near Morley's room. He was dead when I got there, I swear. Poirot's gaze shifted to Helen, noting her stillness. Mademoiselle Montresor, you are quiet. Did you see Monsieur Carter in the garden before this incident? Helen's lips parted, then closed. I was in the library, Monsieur Poirot. I saw nothing. Her voice was steady, but her eyes avoided his telltale sign. Blunt stepped forward, his voice cold. Poirot, you're overstepping. Carter's a troublemaker, always has been. Take him to the police and be done with it. Poirot's smile was serene, but his mind raced. The gun was a setup, Carter a convenient scapegoat. The real killer was orchestrating a performance, and Blunt's estate was the stage. Monsieur, I shall inform Inspector Japp, but I ask that Monsieur Carter remain here, under watch, until I return the truth. It is close, like a hen about to lay. Blunt hesitated, then nodded curtly. Carter was led to a guest room, guarded by a footman, while Poirot returned to the drawing-room with Blunt and Helen. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced like conspirators. Poirot paced, his cane tapping a rhythm, his mind aligning. The sticks, Carter's scar, Mabel's note, the Calcutta photograph, the telegram, and now a planted gun. Monsieur Blunt, Poirot began, his voice low. Your past in Calcutta, it is a heavy hen, is it not? Mabel knew you there, and her note speaks of a bee knowing something. A secret, perhaps, that required Morley's silence. Amberiotis's death, and Mabel's disappearance. Blunt's face darkened, but his voice was steady. "You're fishing, Poirot. Mabel was a nobody, a has-been actress. If she claimed to know me, she was lying." Helen's cup clinked against its saucer, a faint tremor. "Alistair, perhaps. Perhaps she remembered something from India. People talk, about old times." Her voice was soft, but caught the edge of caution. "Oui, Mademoiselle," Poirot said, turning to her. "And you, what do you know of India? Your arrival here, it coincides with these deaths. A coincidence, or something more?" Helen's eyes flashed, but she smiled. "I'm just a cousin, Monsieur Poirot, here to help Alistair with family matters. India I've never been." "You're chasing shadows." Poirot's mustache curved, but his eyes were steel. "Shadows, mademoiselle, often hide substance. Let us speak plainly. Someone killed Morley to silence him, Amberiotis to eliminate a threat, and Mabel, she is either a victim or a player. The gun in the garden, it points to Carter, but to neatly and I think you know more than you say." Blunt stood, his voice sharp. "Enough, Poirot. You're accusing my family without proof. Leave, or I'll call the police myself." Poirot bowed, unruffled. "I shall go, monsieur, but the truth does not. I will return, and the hen will lay its egg." He left the room, his cane tapping a deliberate beat, his mind alight with suspicion. Helen's guarded demeanor, Blunt's defensiveness, Carter's convenient discovery, they were pieces of a puzzle, but the picture was forming. Outside, the garden was a riot of color, roses glowing in the dusk. Poirot paused by the bush where Carter claimed to find the gun, his eyes scanning the earth. A glint caught his attention, a tiny silver bead, like those on Mabel's buckles, nestled in the dirt. He retrieved it with tweezers, tucking it into an envelope. Another stick, another clue. Was Mabel here, or was this another plant? He hailed a cab to London, calling Jap from a village post office. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice urgent. "Carter is at Blunt's estate, accused of wielding a gun, but it is a setup. The gun was unfired, placed to incriminate, and I have found a silver bead, like Mabel's buckles. Search her hotel again, and check Blunt's estate records. Look for Helen Montreza. She is no mere cousin, I think." Jap's voice crackled. "Blunt's estate. You're playing with fire, Poirot, but Carter's alibi is crumbling. He admits he was at the surgery, but swears he only saw Morley's body. As for Mabel, we've got a lead. A cab driver saw a woman like her near King's Cross, with a man's scarred face. We're chasing it." Poirot's pulse quickened. "The scarred man again. Find him, Jap. He is the shadow we seek." And Helen's eyes hide a story. "I shall return to London tomorrow, after I speak with Carter." Back at the estate, Poirot was granted access to Carter, now confined to a small room under the footman's watch. The young man's scar stood out, a crescent of guilt or innocence. "Monsieur Carter," Poirot began, his voice gentle, "you are in a trap. But who's? Tell me of the surgery, of Miss Neville, of Mabel." Carter's eyes were wild, his voice low. "I told you I was dropping a letter for Gladys. She asked me to, said it was urgent. I saw Mabel leaving, all flustered, clutching her bag. And Morley, he was dead, sprawled in his chair, blood everywhere. I didn't touch him, I swear." Poirot leaned closer, his eyes piercing. "And the letter, what did it say?" Carter hesitated, then slumped. "Didn't read it. Gladys said it was for a friend. Something about a meeting. She was scared. Kept saying we had to be careful." Poirot's mind raced. The telegram, the letter, made Bells fear they were linked. A chain leading to Blunt. And this gun, in the garden, why pick it up? Carter's hands shook. "I don't know. It was there, shining in the roses. I thought maybe it was important. Then that gardener went mad, and now I'm here." Poirot nodded, rising. "Stay calm, monsieur. The truth, it will free you, or bind you. I shall find which." As he left, the night wrapped the estate in velvet darkness. Poirot's cab took him to a nearby inn where he sat by a fire, sketching a timeline. Morley's death at 10. Amberiotis's overdose by noon. Mabel disappearance. Carter on the stairs. The telegram. The Calcutta note. The silver bead. The big fat hen was Blunt's secret. Perhaps a scandal from India, guarded by murder. Helen Montreza was no cousin. She was a player. Her arrival too timely. Carter, a pawn, was trapped, but his scar tied him to the shadowed man seen. With Mabel, Poirot sipped a brandy, his eyes on the flames. The sticks were straighter, the pattern clearer, but the hen's egg. Blunt's secret remained uncracked. Tomorrow, he would confront Carter again, track Mabel's trail, and probe Helen's role. The nursery rhyme sang softly. 9:10. A big fat hen, and Poirot felt the weight of truth, heavy with promise, ready to hatch. Satisfying end. The garden incident with Carter, the discovery of the silver bead, and Helen Montreza's suspicious presence deepened the conspiracy, giving Poirot clear leads to pursue while leaving listeners eager for the next chapter's revelations. Chapter 6, 11, 12. Men must delve. The London night was a velvet curtain, pierced by the sodium glow of street lamps and the distant wail of a tugboat on the Thames. Hercule Poirot stood in the shadow of a narrow alley off Cable Street, his Homburg hat tilted low, his cane a silent partner in the dark. The air was thick with the scent of tar and river mud, a gritty counterpoint to the polished halls of Alistair Blunt's world. The nursery rhyme's sixth line, 11:12. Men must delve thrummed in Poirot's mind, urging him to dig deeper into the conspiracy that had claimed Dr. Henry Morley's life, ended Amberiotis with an overdose, and spirited away Mabel, Sainsbury Seal. The sticks of clues, her silver buckles, a Calcutta note, a planted gun, a silver bead were aligning, but the truth lay buried in the city's underbelly, where secrets festered like roots in damp earth. Poirot's morning had begun with a cryptic message from Chief Inspector Japp, delivered by a breathless constable to his Whitehaven Mansions flat. A body had been found in a trunk in a Limehouse warehouse, near the docks where the scarred man and Mabel were last seen. The woman, disfigured beyond recognition, was tentatively identified as Mabel Sainsbury Seal, her dental records missing from Morley's files. Japp's note hinted at a darker twist. Amberiotis, the Greek, had been blackmailing someone. His hotel room littered with coded letters mentioning a B. Alistair Blunt, perhaps, whose Calcutta past loomed ever larger. Now, Poirot was en route to meet Mr. Barnes, a retired Home Office agent who had contacted him through Japp, claiming knowledge of Blunt's early career in Czechoslovakia, a Balkan state tangled in financial scandals. Barnes lived in a crumbling tenement, its walls stained with soot, its windows rattling in the wind. Poirot knocked, his gloved hand precise, and the door creaked open to reveal a small man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a face like crumpled parchment. "Monsieur Poirot," Barnes said, his voice a dry rustle, "you're punctual. Come in. But mind the step, it's a devil." The room was a clutter of books and maps, a single lamp casting shadows that danced like conspirators. Barnes gestured to a sagging chair, his eyes sharp despite his frail frame. "Merci, Monsieur Barnes," Poirot said, settling with care, his cane across his knees. "You know of Alistair Blunt, of Czechoslovakia, and perhaps of secrets that kill. Speak, I beg you." Barnes leaned forward, his fingers steepled. Blunt was in Czechoslovakia in 09, before his India days. A young financier, brokering deals for British banks. There was a scandal, a royal marriage, hushed up, tied to a loan that kept the country afloat. Blunt was the middleman, but someone got burned. Papers vanished, and a woman was involved, an actress, they said, who knew too much. Poirot's pulse quickened, his mind flashing to Mabel's Calcutta photograph. Her note, "AB knows. This actress, she was Mabel Sainsbury Seal." Barnes shrugged, his eyes glinting. Could be. Names change like masks, but Blunt's climbed high since then, and high men have long shadows. Amberiotis was sniffing around, digging for dirt. Blackmail, I'd wager. And Morley. Maybe he saw something in a patient's file. Teeth don't lie. Poirot's mustache twitched, the sticks aligning. And this marriage, it was Blunt's. Barnes chuckled, a dry rasp. That's the question, isn't it? Dig deeper, Poirot. The docks, the warehouses there where secrets get buried, or bodies. Poirot rose, his mind alight. "Merci, monsieur, you have given me a shovel. I shall delve." He left, the alley's chill seeping through his coat, and hailed a cab to Limehouse where the warehouse awaited. The docks were a labyrinth of crates and shadows, the air heavy with salt and oil. Japp met him at the warehouse door, his face grim under his bowler hat. "Poirot, it's a nasty business," Japp said, leading him inside. The warehouse was cavernous, its air damp, its floor littered with sawdust. A battered trunk sat in a corner cordoned by police tape, its lid ajar. "Found her this morning," a dockworker's tip. Face smashed, but the clothes matched Mabel's feathered hat, old dress, no buckles though. Poirot knelt, his gloved hands hovering over the trunk. The body was indeed disfigured, the face unrecognizable, but a faint scent of lavender clung to the fabric, echoing Mabel's hotel room. He examined the hands, no rings, but a faint scar on the wrist, like a burn. "This scar, Inspector, did Mabel have such a mark?" Japp frowned, flipping through his notebook. "Not mentioned in her file. But dental records are gone, stolen. From Morley's office, someone's covering tracks." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. The missing records, the disfigured face, it was too deliberate. "This is no accident, mon ami. The killer wishes us to believe this is Mabel, but I am not convinced. We must find her dental history elsewhere, perhaps. Dr. Riley keeps duplicates." Japp nodded, signaling a constable to take notes. "And there's more. Let us found one with a Czechoslovakian postmark coded mentioning a B and the Queen's shadow. Sounds like blackmail to me." Poirot's heart skipped, Barnes's words echoing. A royal marriage, hushed up. "We, Amberiotis," was a vulture, circling Blunt's secrets. But who killed them? And Morley, and perhaps this woman? "We must delve, Inspector, into the shadows." They left the warehouse, the river's murmur a mournful backdrop. Poirot's next stop was a seedy pub near the docks, where Japp's men had traced the scarred man seen with Mabel. The pub, the Rusty Anchor, was a den of smoke and laughter, its patrons a mix of sailors and rogues. Poirot entered, his polished appearance drawing stares, but his calm demeanor silenced them. At the bar, a woman with a weathered face and a crooked smile eyed him. "You're that detective, ain't you?" she said, wiping a glass. "Heard you're after the scarred bloke. Saw him here last night with a lady, nervous type. kept fussing with her hat. Poirot leaned closer, his voice low. This lady, she was Mabel Sainsbury Seal, and the man his scar, like a crescent. The barmaid nodded, her eyes narrowing. That's him. Called himself Jack, but I don't buy it. They were arguing, quiet-like, about a letter. She wanted to give it to someone. He said it was too dangerous. Left in a hurry, toward the river. Poirot's pulse quickened, the sticks aligning. A letter like the one Carter claimed to deliver for Miss Neville. This letter, madame, did you see it? She shook her head, pouring a pint. Nah, but it was in her bag, clutched tight, had a seal, red wax, fancy-like. Poirot tipped his hat, slipping her a coin. Mercy, you have been most helpful. He stepped into the night, the river's edge glinting under the moon. The scarred man Carter or another and Mabel's letter were keys, but to what lock? He hailed a cab to Morley's office, hoping Dr. Riley, the partner, might hold answers. The office was dark, its windows shuttered, but a light flickered. Upstairs, Poirot knocked, and Riley appeared, his roguish grin strained. Poirot burning the midnight oil. What's this about? Poirot's eyes were steel. Monsieur Riley, you were here when Morley died. Dental records are missing, yet you share this office. Have you duplicates? And what of a letter, sealed in red wax, perhaps delivered here? Riley's grin faltered, his hand brushing his pocket. Records, I leave that to the staff. As for letters, I get dozens, patience, bills, nonsense. Why? Poirot stepped closer, his voice soft but piercing. Because a woman is dead, or missing, and a man with a crescent scar carries secrets. You saw nothing, heard nothing, that morning. Riley's eyes darted to the stairs, then back. I told you, I was upstairs working. Heard a door slam, maybe, but that's all. This letter business sounds like you're chasing ghosts. Poirot's mustache curved, but his gaze was unrelenting. Ghosts, monsieur, leave traces, I shall find them. He left, noting Riley's unease, the faint bulge in his pocket, perhaps a letter, or a lie. Back at Whitehaven Mansions, Poirot spread his clues on his desk. The silver thread, the Calcutta note, the photograph, the silver bead, and now the image of a red wax-sealed letter. He sketched a timeline, delving deeper. Morley's death at 10. Ambriotis's overdose by noon. Mabel's last sighting with a scarred man. The body in the trunk, the Czechoslovakian letter. The men must delve were himself and Jap, digging into Blunt's past, a royal marriage, perhaps, or a financial betrayal. The telephone rang. Jap's voice taut. Poirot, we've got the postbox from the telegram. It's rented to an MS, but the address leads to a boarded-up shop in Whitechapel. And Carter, he's talking. Says he saw a woman, not Mabel, leaving Morley's office, wearing her hat, thinks it was a disguise. Poirot's heart raced, the sticks aligning. A disguise. The body in the trunket is not Mabel, but a substitute, to throw us off. Find this shop, Jap, and the scarred man. He is the link. As he hung up, Poirot leaned back, his tisane steaming. The conspiracy was a labyrinth, but he was delving its depths. Mabel was alive, or a mastermind. Blunt's secret was the prize, guarded by murder. The nursery rhyme sang 11:12. Men must delve, and Poirot felt the earth giving way. The truth close enough to touch. Satisfying end. The discovery of the body in the trunk, the Czechoslovakian connection, and the hint of a disguised woman deepened the mystery, giving Poirot clear leads to pursue while leaving listeners eager for the next chapter's revelations. Chapter 7, 13-14. Maids a courting London. Twilight draped the city in a cloak of indigo, the gaslights flickering like suitors vying for attention. Hercule Poirot stood in a secluded garden square off Russell Street, the air set with damp earth and fading roses. His Homburg hat cast a shadow across his face, his cane a silent partner as he observed a clandestine meeting unfolding beneath a lamppost's amber glow. Jane Oliveira, Alistair Blunt's defiant niece, stood close to Howard Raikes, the fiery American activist, their whispers sharp with urgency. The nursery rhyme 7th line 13-14, maids a courting, hummed in Poirot's mind, casting Jane as a maid whose courtship with Raikes might hold the key to the murders of Dr. Henry Morley and Ambriotis, the disappearance of Mabel Sainsbury Seal, and the conspiracy circling Blunt's hidden past. Poirot's investigation had gained urgency since the grim discovery in the Limehouse warehouse, a body, presumed to be Mabel's, disfigured and placed in a trunk, to mislead. Yet Jap's latest report, delivered that morning over a hurried breakfast, suggested a twist. A woman resembling Mabel, but not her, was seen leaving Morley's office in a hat, hinting at a disguise. The Czechoslovakian letter found in Ambriotis's room, mentioning a bee and the Queen's shadow, pointed to a scandal tied to Blunt's past, perhaps a royal marriage. Frank Carter's presence on the back stairs, the silver bead from Blunt's estate, and the red wax-sealed letter described by the barmaid were sticks. Poirot was laying straight, but the truth remained elusive. Buried deep, he had followed Jane and Raikes from a discreet distance, their hurried departure from a political rally in Bloomsbury catching his eye. Jane's crimson scarf fluttered like a flag of rebellion, and Raikes' restless energy suggested secrets too heavy to hold. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, sensing their romance was more than passionate, was a thread in the web of deceit. He stepped closer, concealed by a hedge, his ears straining to catch their words. "You're reckless, Howard," Jane hissed, her voice low but fierce. "If Uncle Alistair finds out you've been digging into his past, he'll crush you, and I won't let you drag me down with you." Rakes gripped her arm, his eyes blazing. "I'm not afraid of Blunt. He's hiding something Calcutta, Slovakia, something big. That actress Maybelle, she knew it, and now she's gone. You know more than you're saying, Jane." Jane yanked her arm free, her face pale. "Don't push me, I love you, but I'm not your pawn." Mabel was a fool, babbling about old plays and buckles. If she's dead, it's her own fault. Poirot's pulse quickened, his mind seizing on Mabel's name. He stepped forward, his cane tapping softly, his voice a velvet intrusion. "Mademoiselle Oliveira, Monsieur Rakes, a lover's quarrel perhaps, or a discussion of murder." Jane gasped, spinning to face him, while Rakes' hand twitched toward his pocket. "Poirot," Jane snapped, her eyes flashing. "Spying now. This is private." Poirot's mustache curved, his gaze serene but piercing. "In matters of murder, mademoiselle, nothing is private. You speak of Maybelle Sainsbury Seal, whose disappearance troubles me. And you, Monsieur Rakes, you seek secrets in Monsieur Blunt's past. What have you found?" Rakes' jaw tightened, but Jane spoke first, her voice sharp. "He's found nothing but rumors. Uncle Alistair's a saint to the world, but Howard thinks he's a devil." "It's nonsense." Rakes glared at her, then turned to Poirot. "It's not nonsense. Blunt's got blood on his hands, morally ambiriotus. Maybe Maybelle. I've got contacts, people who've heard whispers of a deal in Slovakia, a marriage that went sour. Mabel was there, in Calcutta, when Blunt was climbing the ladder. She knew something worth killing for." Poirot's eyes gleamed, the sticks aligning. "And this marriage, monsieur, who was the bride?" Rakes hesitated, his voice dropping. "No name, just hints. A royal maybe, or someone close. Blunt buried it, and now he's burying anyone who digs it up." Jane's laugh was brittle. "You're obsessed, Howard. Monsieur Poirot, he's chasing ghosts. My uncle's no murderer." Poirot tilted his head, his gaze shifting to Jane. "Yet ghosts, mademoiselle, leave footprints. You were at Morley's surgery that morning, were you not? Perhaps you saw Maybelle, or another woman, wearing her hat." Jane's eyes widened, but she recovered quickly. "I wasn't there. I had no appointment." "You're grasping, Poirot." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "We shall see. For now, I advise caution. The heart, it courts danger as well as love." He bowed, leaving them in the lamplight, their whispers resuming as he slipped away. When counter had yielded a new stick, Rake's pursuit of Blunt's Slovakian past, and Jane's defensive edge, suggesting she knew more than she admitted. His next destination was Agnes Fletcher's modest flat in Stepney, where the maid's courage at St. Mary's had revealed Frank Carter's presence on the back stairs. Poirot needed more. Her eyes had held a secret, trembling like a candle in a draught. The flat was a narrow walk-up, its stairs creaking underfoot, the air heavy with cabbage and coal dust. Agnes opened the door, her apron traded for a faded dress, her face pale but resolute. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling, "I didn't expect you. Is it about Dr. Morley?" Poirot removed his hat, his demeanor gentle. "Oui, Mademoiselle Fletcher. Your words at the church were brave, but I sense you hold more. The back stairs. Frank Carter, you saw something else." Agnes's hands twisted, her eyes starting to the window. I shouldn't say it's dangerous, sir. But you're kind, and I can't keep it in no more." She gestured to a rickety chair, and Poirot sat, his cane across his knees. "Speak, mademoiselle," he urged, his voice a soothing balm. "The truth, it protects as much as it perils." Agnes took a shaky breath. "That morning, before I found Dr. Morley dead, I saw two men on the back stairs, not just Frank. One was him, with his scar, but the other, he was older, taller, in a grey coat, hat pulled low. They were arguing, quiet-like, about a woman. I heard Mabel and keep her quiet. I hid in the pantry, scared to death." Poirot's heart raced, but his face remained calm. "This second man, his face, did you see it?" Agnes shook her head. "No, sir, just his back. But he moved like someone important, not a common sort. And Frank, he looked terrified, like he was in over his head." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes piercing. "And Maybelle, did you see her leave, or another woman, perhaps, in her hat?" Agnes's eyes widened. "Another woman? I saw someone in a feathered hat, like Maybelle's, slipping out the back. But her walk was different, stiffer, like she was trying to be someone else. I thought it was Maybelle, but now..." Poirot's mustache twitched, the sticks aligning. "A woman in disguise, two men on the stairs, a Slovakian scandal. It was a tapestry of deception, with Blunt at its center. Mademoiselle, you have given me a treasure. This second man, his coat, any mark, any detail?" Agnes frowned, then brightened. "A pin, sir, on his lapel, silver, shaped like a crescent moon, like Frank's scar." Poirot's pulse quickened. The crescent, a new thread tying the scarred man to the conspiracy. "Mercy, mademoiselle, you must stay safe. Tell no one of this, and keep my card close." He pressed another card into her hand, noting her trembling fingers, and left. the night's chill wrapping around him at Scotland Yard. Chief Inspector Japp awaited in his cluttered office, a map of Whitechapel pinned to the wall. Poirot. "You're a bloodhound," Japp said, tossing a file across the desk. "That postbox from the telegram, it's a dead end. But we found a receipt in Mabel's hotel room for a storage locker at King's Cross. Contents, a diary. Locked. No key. And the scarred man's sightings near the docks, but no name yet." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A diary, mon ami. It may hold Mabel's secrets. And the woman in the trunk, she is not Mabel, I am certain. The disguise Agnes saw, the feathered hat, it was a ruse to make us believe her dead." Japp's eyebrows rose. "A ruse, that's bold. And Carter's sticking to his story, says he was delivering a letter for Miss Neville, saw Morley dead, and bolted. But this second man Agnes mentioned, that's new." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. "The man in the grey coat, with a crescent pin, he is our shadow. Perhaps the scarred man, perhaps not. We must find Mabel's diary, and we must watch Jane Oliveira. Her courtship with Rakes, she knows more than she says." Japp scribbled notes, then leaned back. "Blunt's untouchable, Poirot. If he's behind this, we need ironclad proof. What's your next move?" Poirot rose, his cane tapping a resolute beat. "I shall visit King's Cross, seek this diary, and I shall speak with Miss Neville, if she can be found. Her telegram, her absence, they are keys. And Jane, I shall charm her into truth." The cab ride to King's Cross was a blur of lights and shadows, the station's arches looming like a cathedral of secrets. The storage locker was tucked in a dank corner, its lock rusted but intact. Poirot, with Japp's authority, had it opened by a station guard. Inside was a small leather diary, its clasp sealed, its pages yellowed. Poirot's fingers itched to open it, but without the key, he tucked it into his coat, vowing to find a locksmith. As he left, a figure caught his eye, a woman in a grey cloak, her face veiled, hurrying toward a platform. Her walk was stiff, like the woman Agnes described. Poirot followed, his steps silent, but she vanished into a crowd boarding a train to Dover. Was it Mabel or the impostor? He made a mental note to check passenger lists, his heart pounding with the chase. Back at Whitehaven Mansions, Poirot spread his clues on his desk: the silver thread, the Calcutta note, the photograph, the silver bead, the diary. He sketched a timeline: Morley's death at 10, Ambriotis's overdose, Mabel's sighting, with the scarred man, the body in the trunk, the grey-coated man with the crescent pin, Jane's defiance, Rake's suspicions, Agnes's testimony. They were threads in a courtship of truth and lies. The nursery rhyme sang 13-14. Maids a courting, and Poirot felt the truth beckoning. A maid waiting to be won. Satisfying end. Agnes's revelation of the second man with the crescent pin, the discovery of Mabel's locked diary, and the sighting of the veiled woman deepened the conspiracy, giving Poirot clear leads to pursue while leaving listeners eager for the next chapter's revelations. Chapter 8. 1516. Maids in the kitchen. The October dusk settled over Alistair Blunt's Kent estate like a velvet shroud, the manor's windows glowing like embers against the gathering dark. Hercule Poirot stood in the gravel drive, his Homburg hat tilted against the chill, his cane a steady companion as he surveyed the scene. The nursery rhymes, 8th line, 15-16. Maids in the kitchen hummed in his mind, conjuring images of hidden truths simmering like a stew. Tended by the maids of this mystery: Agnes Fletcher, Mabel Sainsbury Seal, and now Helen Montresor, whose guarded presence hinted at a deeper role. Poirot's investigation into Dr. Henry Morley's staged murder, Ambriotis's fatal overdose, and Mabel's disappearance had led him back to Blunt's estate, where a secret from Calcutta or Czechoslovakia festered, guarded by lies and violence. The past days had tightened the web. Agnes's testimony of a second man with a crescent pin on the back stairs, Mabel's locked diary found at King's Cross, and the veiled woman seen fleeing toward Dover suggested a conspiracy orchestrated with chilling precision. The body in the Limehouse trunk, presumed to be Mabel but likely an impostor, was a deliberate misdirection. And Frank Carter's entanglement, his scar matching the shadowed man's, pointed to a pawn caught in a larger game. Little gray cells buzzed, sensing the kitchen of this case was hot with secrets, ready to boil over. He had arranged a gathering at the estate, ostensibly to discuss estate business with Blunt, but in truth to stir the pot. The drawing room was a study in opulence, its mahogany panels gleaming under crystal chandeliers. Alistair Blunt stood by the fireplace, his broad shoulders a fortress of calm, while Helen Montresor sat near a window, her auburn hair catching the firelight, her fingers tracing the edge of a silver ring. Jane Oliveira and Howard Rakes were absent, their volatile courtship a concern Poirot would address later. Julia Oliveira, Jane's mother, hovered near a tea tray, her pearls glinting with nervous energy. The air was thick with unspoken accusations, the room a kitchen where truths were being prepared. "Monsieur Poirot," Blunt said, his voice smooth but edged, "you return like a persistent guest. What brings you back? More questions about poor Morley?" Poirot's mustache curved, his grey eyes piercing. "Oui, Monsieur Blunt. The deaths of Morley and Ambriotis, the disappearance of Mabel Sainsbury Seal, they are dishes served from the same kitchen. And you, I think. Know the recipe. Helen's laugh was soft, almost musical, but her eyes were wary. A vivid metaphor, Monsieur Poirot, but Alistair is no chef of murder. You're chasing shadows. Julia's hand trembled, spilling tea. This is outrageous. Alistair is a pillar of society. Why do you harass us? Poirot raised a hand, his voice gentle but firm. Madame, I harass only lies. Let us speak of Calcutta, 1910. Mabel Sainsbury, Seal knew you there, Monsieur Blunt, and her note speaks of a bee knowing a secret. A marriage, perhaps, hidden to protect your eyes. Blunt's face hardened, but before he could reply, a clatter echoed from the hall. A maid, not Agnes, but a younger girl with wide eyes, burst in, her apron askew. Sir, it's the kitchen. Something's wrong. Cook found a letter, hidden in the flour bin. Poirot's pulse quickened, his eyes meeting Blunt's. A letter, mademoiselle. Show me it. The group followed the maid to the kitchen, a cavernous space of copper, pots and simmering aromas. The cook, a stout woman with flour-dusted hands, held a crumpled envelope, its red wax seal broken but unmistakable, the seal described by the Limehouse barmaid. Found it when I was baking, sir, the cook said, her voice trembling, tucked in the bin, like someone hid it in a hurry. Poirot took the envelope, his gloved fingers careful. The letter inside was written in a hurried scrawl. Alistair, they know about Gerda. Morley saw the records. Silence him, or we're finished. MS, the initials Mabel Sainsbury, seal sent a jolt through Poirot. But the name Gerda was new, a spice in the stew. Gerda, Poirot murmured, his eyes on Blunt. Who is she, monsieur? A wife, perhaps, from your past. Blunt's face was stone, but his voice was steady. I don't know any Gerda. Mabel was delusional, writing nonsense. This proves nothing. Helen stepped forward, her voice calm but tight. Monsieur Poirot, you're leaping to conclusions. Mabel was an actress, prone to flights of fancy. This letter could be a prank. Poirot's gaze shifted to Helen, noting her clenched hands. A prank, mademoiselle. Nan, this is no jest. Morley's dental records are missing. Amberiotis's blackmail letters mention A.B. And now this Gerda, a name that stirs fear. Who is she? Julia's voice rose, shrill. Enough. You're accusing my brother of murder over a scrap of paper. Leave, Monsieur Poirot, before I call the authorities. Poirot's smile was serene, but his mind raced. I shall leave, madame. But first, I set a trap. Tonight, all players in this drama will gather here. Jane Rakes, Carter, and you. The kitchen of truth is hot, and the dish will be served. He left the kitchen, the letter in his pocket, and called Jap from the estate's telephone. Mon ami, Poirot said, his voice urgent. A letter, sealed in red wax. Names a Gerda and links Blunt to Morley's death. I suspect Helen Montresor is Gerda, hidden as a cousin to protect a secret marriage. Bring Carter to Blunt's estate tonight, and check Czechoslovakian records for a marriage involving Blunt. Jap's voice crackled. Gerda. That's a new one. Carter's still in custody, swearing he's innocent. We've got a lead on the veiled woman seen boarding a Dover train, but no trace yet. I'll bring Carter and dig into those records. Poirot hung up his mind, a whirl of connections. The letter, Gerda, Helen's guarded demeanor, the crescent pin. He returned to the manor where the evening's gathering was assembling. Jane and Rakes arrived, their faces tense. Jane's crimson scarf a defiant splash. Carter was brought in by a constable, his scar vivid under the chandelier's light, his eyes darting with fear. Blunt stood by the fireplace, Helen beside him, her silver ring glinting like a warning. Poirot paced, his cane tapping a rhythm. Mesdames et messieurs, we are in the kitchen of this case, where truths simmer. Dr. Morley was killed to silence his knowledge, Amberiotis to stop his blackmail, and Mabel, alive or dead, was a threat. This letter, he held up the envelope, speaks of Gerda, a secret tied to Monsieur Blunt. I propose that Mabel knew of a marriage, hidden to protect your empire, monsieur. And you, Mademoiselle Montresor, are Gerda Nan. Helen's face paled, but she laughed. A brittle sound. Absurd, Monsieur Poirot. I'm Helen Montresor, Alistair's cousin. There's no Gerda here. Blunt's voice was ice. You're overreaching, Poirot. This is harassment. I've never married, and Mabel's letter is a lie. Jane's eyes flashed, her voice cutting. Oh, uncle, stop it. You've always been too perfect, hiding something. If Helen's Gerda, it explains everything. Why Mabel vanished, why Morley died. Rakes stepped forward, his voice low. She's right. I've heard whispers. Hers is Slovakia, a royal deal, a woman who disappeared. You're protecting a secret, Blunt, and people are dying for it. Carter's voice broke through. Hoarse. I didn't kill anyone. I saw that woman in Mabel's hat, leaving the surgery. She wasn't Mabel. Her eyes were different, colder. I swear, I'm no murderer. Poirot's eyes gleamed, the sticks aligning. Merci, Monsieur Carter. Your words confirm a disguise. Mabel's hat was worn by another, to stage her death. And this letter, it was hidden, not sent, to protect Gerda. He turned to Helen, his voice soft but relentless. Mademoiselle, or should I say Madame Blunt, you came to this estate as a cousin, but your eyes betray you. You are Gerda, married to Alistair in Czechoslovakia or Calcutta, hidden to preserve his power. Helen's hand flew to her ring, her composure cracking. "You're mad, Poirot. I'm no one's wife. I came to help Alistair, that's all." Blunt's hand gripped her shoulder, his voice sharp. "Silence, Helen Poirot. You have no proof. This ends now." Poirot raised a hand, his voice a velvet blade. "None, monsieur. It begins. Tonight, I have set a trap. The police are coming, with records from Czechoslovakia. If they show a marriage, the kitchen will serve its truth." The room fell silent. The fires crackled, the only sound. Helen's eyes darted to Blunt, then to the door, her fingers twisting the ring. Jane's breath hitched, Rake's fists clenched, and Carter shrank back, his scar a crescent of guilt, or innocence. Poirot's trap was set, but the truth was still simmering. The maids in the kitchen guarding their secrets thought as the group dispersed. Poirot slipped into the garden, the night air sharp with frost. He found a bench, his mind sketching a timeline: Morley's death at 10, Ambiriotis's overdose, Mabel's disappearance, the body in the trunk, the crescent pin, the red wax letter. Helen as Gerda. The maids in the kitchen were Mabel, Agnes, and now Helen, each holding a piece of the puzzle. He pulled the locked diary from his coat, its clasp unyielding, and vowed to find its key. Japp arrived, his face grim, a file in hand. "Poirot, you're a wizard. Czechoslovakian records show a marriage Alistair Blunt to Gerda Hesse, 1909. She vanished after a scandal, presumed dead. If Helen's Gerda Blunt's been hiding her for years." Poirot's heart raced, the sticks aligning. "And the diary, mon ami. Have you found the key?" Japp shook his head. "Not yet, but we're close. The veiled woman, she bought a ticket to Calais, not Dover. We're tracking her." Poirot nodded, his eyes on the manor's glowing windows. "The kitchen is hot, Inspector. Tonight we stir the pot, and tomorrow we serve the truth." He returned to his room at the inn, the nursery rhyme singing 15-16 maids. In the kitchen and felt the truth bubbling, ready to spill. Satisfying end, the discovery of the red wax letter naming Gerda, Helen's exposure as Blunt's hidden wife, and the confirmation of a Czechoslovakian marriage deepened the conspiracy, giving Poirot a clear path to confront the suspects while leaving listeners eager for the next chapter's climax. Chapter 9, 17-18. Maids awaiting the Kent estate of Alistair Blunt shimmered under a crescent moon, its turrets piercing the velvet night like silent sentinels. Hercule Poirot stood in the shadowed portico, his Homburg hat casting a veil over his eyes, his cane a quiet anchor in the October chill. The manor's windows glowed with the promise of confrontation, a stage set for the unraveling of a deadly tapestry. The nursery rhymes 9th line, 17-18. Maids awaiting, sang in his mind, casting the women of this case: Sainsbury Seal, Agnes Fletcher, and Helen Montreza revealed as Gerda, Blunt's secret wife, as maids poised on the edge of truth, waiting for the axe to fall. Poirot's investigation into Dr. Henry Morley's murder, Ambiriotis's overdose, and Mabel's disappearance had reached a crescendo, with the red wax letter and Czechoslovakian records exposing Blunt's hidden marriage as the motive for murder. The previous night's revelations had set the pot boiling. The letter found in the kitchen, naming Gerda and urging Morley's silence, confirmed Helen as Blunt's wife, hidden to protect his financial empire. Agnes's account of a second man with a crescent pin, the locked diary from King's Cross, and the veiled woman fleeing to Calais suggested a conspiracy orchestrated with chilling precision. Frank Carter, with his matching scar, was a pawn, but the mastermind remained elusive. Poirot had summoned all players: Blunt, Helen, Jane Olivera, Howard Rakes, and Carter to the estate for a final reckoning, a trap to force the truth into the open. The drawing room was a crucible of tension, its chandeliers casting prisms across mahogany walls. Blunt stood by the fireplace, his broad frame a fortress of defiance, his eyes cold as steel. Helen, or Gerda, sat rigidly, her auburn hair pinned tightly, her silver ring glinting like a confession. Jane perched on a sofa, her crimson scarf a slash of rebellion, her eyes darting between her uncle and Rakes, who stood by a window, his lean form taut with barely contained fury. Carter, under police guard, slouched in a corner, his crescent scar vivid under the light, his face a mask of fear and defiance. Julia Olivera, Jane's mother, hovered near a tea tray, her pearls trembling with her hands. Chief Inspector Japp stood by the door, his notebook ready, his presence a silent promise of justice. Poirot stepped forward, his cane tapping a deliberate rhythm, his voice a velvet blade. "Madame et messieurs, we stand in the kitchen of truth, where the maids of this case, Mabel, Agnes, and Gerda, wait for the dish to be served. Dr. Morley was murdered to protect a secret. Ambiriotis silenced for his blackmail, and Mabel, her fate hangs in the balance. Tonight, I lay the table bare." Blunt's voice was ice. "Poirot, your theatrics tire me. You've accused my cousin, my friend Helen, with no proof. This letter you brandish is nonsense, a forgery." Helen's lips parted, but her voice was steady. "He's right, Monsieur Poirot. I'm Helen Montresa, not this Gerda you invent. Your theories are fanciful, nothing more." Jane's laugh cut through the room, sharp as a blade. "Oh, Helen, drop the act. You're no cousin. I've seen the way Uncle Alistair looks at you, guilty protective. You're his wife, aren't you, hidden all these years? Rakes stepped forward, his voice low and fierce. She's right. I've dug into your past. Blunt Czechoslovakia 1909, a marriage to Gerda Hess. Buried to save your reputation. Mabel knew, didn't she? That's why she's gone. Carter's voice broke through, hoarse. I told you I saw a woman in Mabel's hat, leaving the surgery. It wasn't her, it was someone else, playing a part. I'm no killer. Poirot raised a hand, his eyes gleaming. Silence, see-vous, plot. Let us lay the facts straight. Mabel Sainsbury Seal, with her silver buckles, knew of a marriage in Calcutta or Czechoslovakia, a secret that threatened Monsieur Blunt's empire. Her note, her photograph, her diary all point to Dr. Morley's dental records, stolen, held proof of this secret, perhaps a patient's identity. Ambriotis, a blackmailer, was poisoned to silence his threats. And Mabel, her disappearance was staged, with a body in a trunk, disfigured to deceive. He turned to Helen, his voice soft but relentless. Mademoiselle Montresor or Madame Blunt, you are Gerda Hess, married to Alistair in 1909. The letter in the kitchen, sealed in red wax, begs him to silence Morley. You were at the surgery that morning, Nan, wearing Mabel's hat, her buckle, to impersonate her and create the illusion of her flight. Helen's face paled, her hand clutching her ring. You're mad, Poirot. I was never at the surgery. I'm no imposter. Blunt stepped forward, his voice a low growl. Enough, Poirot. You accuse without evidence. I've never married, and Helen is my cousin. Your trap is empty. Poirot's mustache twitched, his gaze shifting to Carter. Monsieur Carter, you saw this woman in Mabel's hat. Her eyes, you said, were cold. Were they the eyes of Mademoiselle Montresor? Carter's scar twitched, his voice trembling. I don't know. It was quick, dark, but she moved different, stiffer than Mabel. And that man, the one with the crescent pin, he was there, whispering to her. Japp's voice cut in, sharp. The crescent pin again, Poirot. We've traced the veiled woman to Calais. She boarded a ship to Amsterdam. No name, but her ticket was bought with cash. Same day as Mabel's last sighting. Poirot's heart raced. The sticks aligning. Mercy, Inspector. The woman in the hat. The veiled traveler. She is our imposter, playing Mabel to mislead us. But Mabel herself, she is alive. I think hiding or hidden. He pulled a locked diary from his coat, its clasp glinting. This diary, found at King's Cross, holds her truth. I have sent for a locksmith, but tonight, we need no key to see the pattern. He paced his cane, a metronome. Let us reconstruct. Morley is killed, his record stolen, to hide Gerda's identity. Ambriotis, blackmailing with her Czechoslovakian secrets, is poisoned. Mabel, who knew of the marriage, is made to vanish, her buckles used to stage an escape. The body in the trunk, disfigured, is a decoy. And you, Madame Blunt, he turned to Helen, you played Mabel, wearing her hat, dropping a buckle to ensure Poirot's suspicion fell elsewhere. Helen's composure cracked, her voice rising. I'm not Gerda, I'm Helen Montresor, and I won't be accused of murder. She stood, her ring catching the light, and Poirot's eyes locked on Ita's silver crescent, matching the pin described by Agnes, a crescent. Madame, Poirot said, his voice soft but deadly, like the pin seen on the man at the surgery. You are no mere cousin. You were Gerda, and you killed Ambriotis. With an overdose, administered with the skill of one who knows a dentist's tools. Helen's hand flew to her ring, her eyes wide. No, I didn't kill anyone. Alistair, tell him. Blunt's face was a storm, but he remained silent. Jane's voice broke through, trembling. Uncle, say something. If she's your wife, why hide it? Why let people die? Rakes lunged forward, his voice a snarl. Because he's a coward, Jane. He's protecting his empire, letting Gerda clean up his mess. Morley, Ambriotis, Mabel, they're all collateral. Carter's shout cut through the chaos. I didn't do it. I saw them, the woman, the man with the pin, but I didn't kill nobody. Poirot raised both hands, his voice commanding. Enough, the trap is sprung. Madame Blunt, your ring betrays you, as does the letter. You impersonated Mabel, dropped her buckle, and ensured her disappearance seemed real. But Ambriotis, you killed him. To stop his blackmail, to protect the secret of your marriage. Helen's knees buckled, and she sank into her chair, her voice a whisper. I didn't mean for it to go so far. Ambriotis was threatening Alistair, demanding money, threatening to expose our marriage. I gave him the overdose, yes, but it was to save us. Morley, I didn't touch him, I swear. Blunt's voice was a low growl. Helen, stop, you've said enough. Poirot's eyes gleamed, the sticks aligned. Mercy, Madame, your confession is a start, but Morley's death, it is not your hand. I think another player, perhaps the man with the crescent pin, or Monsieur Blunt himself. Japp stepped forward, his handcuffs glinting. Helen Montresor or Gerda Hess, you're under arrest for the murder of Ambriotis. We'll sort the rest at the station. Helen's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, her shoulders slumping. Blunt's face was a mask, but his eyes burned with something, guilt or fear. Jane's hand found Rakes, her face pale, while Carter shrank back, his scar a silent testimony. Poirot's trap had caught one maid, but the kitchen was still simmering. The truth not fully served. As Japp led Helen away, Poirot slipped into the garden. the night air sharp with frost. He pulled the diary from his coat, its clasp still locked, and traced its edges. Mabel was alive, he was certain. Her diary the key to the final truth. The crescent pin, the veiled woman, blunt silence, they pointed to a mastermind still at large. He hailed a cab to the inn, calling Jap from there. Mon ami said, his voice urgent. Helen confesses to Ambryotis, but Morley's killer remains. Check Blunt's financial records, hers. Czechoslovakia, Calcutta. Any payments to a man with a crescent pin, and Mabel trace her to Amsterdam. She is the maid still waiting. Jap's voice was grim. Blunt's a fortress, Poirot, but we'll dig. The diary, any luck with the key? Not yet, but I shall find it. Tomorrow, I confront Blunt alone. The kitchen is hot, Inspector, and the dish is nearly ready. At the inn, Poirot sat by the fire, his clues spread before him, the silver thread, the Calcutta note, the photograph, the silver bead, the red wax letter, the diary. He sketched a timeline. Morley's death, Ambryotis's murder, Mabel's stage disappearance, Helen's confession. The maids awaiting were revealing their truths, but Blunt's role, mastermind or pawn, remained unclear. The nursery rhyme saying 1718, maids awaiting, and Poirot felt the truth poised, ready to step into the light. Satisfying end. Helen's confession to Ambryotis's murder, her exposure as Gerda, and the lingering mystery of Morley's killer deepened the conspiracy, giving Poirot clear leads to pursue while leaving listeners eager for the final chapter's resolution. Chapter 10, 1920. My plate is empty. That Kent countryside lay hushed under a dawn mist, the spires of Alistair Blunt's estate piercing the haze like the last notes of a requiem. Hercule Poirot stood in the manor's library, his Homburg hat resting on a mahogany table, his cane a silent sentinel by his side. The room was a cathedral of books, their leather spines gleaming in the early light, but the air was heavy with the weight of impending truth. The nursery rhyme's final line, 1920, my plate is empty, sang in Poirot's mind, a promise that the feast of clues, Dr. Henry Morley's murder, Ambryotis's overdose, Mabel Sainsbury Seal's disappearance, and the conspiracy, shielding Blunt's secret marriage to Gerda Hesse would be consumed, leaving the plate of mystery bare. The past days had woven a tight web. Helen Montresor, revealed as Gerda Hesse, had confessed to Ambryotis's murder, silencing his blackmail over her marriage to Blunt, yet Morley's killer remained at large, and Mabel, believed dead in a Limehouse trunk, was likely alive, her diary locked with secrets. Agnes Fletcher's testimony of a man with a crescent pin, the red wax letter urging Morley's silence, and the veiled woman fleeing to Amsterdam pointed to a mastermind orchestrating deception. Frank Carter, with his matching scar, was a pawn, but Poirot's little grey cells hummed with certainty. Alistair Blunt, the untouchable financier, was the spider at the web's center. Poirot had requested a private audience with Blunt, a final gambit to unmask the truth. The library door creaked open, and Blunt entered, his broad shoulders filling the frame, his face a mask of weary authority. His eyes, sharp as flint, met Poirot's with a challenge. Monsieur Poirot, he said, his voice smooth but taut, you've turned my home into a courtroom. What now? Another accusation. Poirot's mustache twitched, his grey eyes piercing. Nan, Monsieur Blunt, not an accusation, a revelation. The plate of this case is full. Morley's murder and death, Mabel's disappearance, and your marriage to Gerda Hesse, hidden to protect your empire. Tonight, I empty the plate, and the truth will stand bare. Blunt sank into a leather chair, his fingers drumming the armrest. You're relentless, Poirot. Helen Gerda confessed to Ambryotis. Isn't that enough? Morley was a suicide. Mabel, a runaway. You've built a castle on sand. Poirot paced, his cane tapping a deliberate rhythm. Sand, monsieur. Nan, this is stone. Let us lay the facts straight, as one clears a table. Dr. Morley was killed by a pistol, staged as suicide. His dental record stolen to hide a patient's identity or Gerda's. Ambryotis, a blackmailer, was poisoned by Gerda, but only because he knew of your Czechoslovakian marriage in 1909. Mabel Sainsbury Seal, who knew you in Calcutta, was made to vanish. Her buckles used to stage an escape, her body replaced by a decoy in a trunk. And you, Monsieur Blunt, you are the chef of this deadly feast. Blunt's jaw tightened, but his voice was steady. You've no proof, Poirot. Gerda acted alone, out of fear. I knew nothing of her plans. Poirot's eyes gleamed, his voice a velvet blade. Non, monsieur. Gerda was your shield, but you wielded the sword. You killed Morley, to silence his knowledge of your wife's identity, confirmed by dental records. You used Frank Carter as a scapegoat, planting the gun in your garden, exploiting his scar to mirror the mysterious man with the crescent pin. Blunt's laugh was cold, echoing off the bookshelves. You're weaving fiction, Poirot. I was at the surgery for a filling, nothing more. Carter's a thug, always was. If anyone killed Morley, it's him. Poirot stopped pacing, his gaze unrelenting. Carter, a thug, perhaps, but not a murderer. He saw a woman in Mabel's hat, a man with a crescent pin, your man, monsieur, hired to intimidate, and the letter, sealed in red wax, hidden in your kitchen. It was not Gerda's hand alone. You wrote it, or ordered it. to ensure more silence. Blunt's face darkened, but before he could reply, the door swung open. Chief Inspector Japp entered, his face grim, a file clutched in his hand. Behind him stood Jane Oliveira, her crimson scarf a defiant slash, and Howard Rakes, his eyes burning with righteous anger. Poirot, Japp said, "We've got the diary's key. Found it in a pawn shop near King's Cross, sold by a woman matching Mabel's description." And this, he held up the file. Slovakian bank records, showing payments from Blunt to a man named Victor Lyle, alias Jack, with a crescent scar. Poirot's pulse quickened, the sticks aligning. Victor Lyle, we, the scarred man seen with Mabel, seen at the surgery. Your agent, Monsieur Blunt, to tidy your secrets. Blunt rose, his voice a low growl. This is absurd. I know, no. Victor Lyle, you're grasping. Poirot. Jane stepped forward, her voice trembling with fury. Stop lying, uncle. I found your ledger, hidden in the study. Payments to Lyle, coded as consulting fees, starting in 1910. After your marriage to Gerda, you paid him to keep Mabel quiet, to scare her off, didn't you? Rake's voice was a snarl. And when she wouldn't stay quiet, you had Morley killed, then Amberiotis, to protect your precious empire. You're a monster, Blunt. Poirot raised a hand, his voice commanding. Silence. Si vous plot. Let us serve the final course. Monsieur Blunt, your marriage to Gerda Hesse in Slovakia was a scandal, a royal connection, buried to secure your financial rise. Morley's records held proof, perhaps a dental chart showing Gerda's identity. You killed him, using a pistol from your collection, locking the door to stage a suicide. Gerda Loyal killed Amberiotis to stop his blackmail, but you orchestrated the rest. Mabel's disappearance, the decoy body, the planted gun to frame Carter. Blunt's face was stone, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. You can't prove it, Poirot. No jury will touch me. I'm the backbone of this country's economy. Poirot's smile was serene, but his voice was steel. The truth, monsieur, cares not for wealth. Mabel's diary, now unlocked, will speak. I have sent for it, and it will name you, as will Victor Lyle, when Japp finds him. Your payments, your lies, they are the crumbs on the plate, and it is empty now. Japp stepped forward, his handcuffs glinting. Alistair Blunt, you're under arrest for the murder of Dr. Henry Morley and conspiracy to murder. We've got Lyle and custodies talking, naming you as his employer. Blunt's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. It was for stability, he muttered, his voice hollow. The marriage, good, it would have ruined everything. Morley saw her records, started asking questions. Amberiotis was bleeding. Me dry Mabel, she remembered too much from Calcutta. I had to protect the nation's trust. Jane's voice broke, tears in her eyes. You protected yourself, uncle, not the nation. How could you? Rakes put an arm around her, his voice soft. It's over, Jane. Let him face it. Poirot turned to Japp, his voice calm. And Mabel, Inspector, the diary. Japp nodded, pulling a small leather book from his coat. Cracked it open an hour ago. Mabel's alive, hiding in Amsterdam. Her entries confirm it. Blunt paid Lyle to scare her, but she fled, leaving the diary to expose him. She's coming back to testify. Poirot's heart lifted, the plate truly empty. He took the diary, flipping to a passage. Alistair Blunt, Calcutta, 1910, married Gerda Hesse, hid her to climb. I saw them, knew the truth. If I speak, I die. The words were a final stick, laid straight, completing the pattern. The library fell. Silent, the fires crackled, the only sound. Blunt was led away, his head bowed, the weight of his empire crumbling. Jane and Rakes stood together, their hands clasped, their faces a mix of grief and resolve. Poirot watched them, his mind turning to the moral cost of truth. Blunt's crimes had preserved a fragile stability, but at what price? The little grey cells, they demanded justice, and justice was served. As Japp's men cleared the room, Poirot stepped into the garden, the dawn mist curling around him. The stars were fading, the world awakening. He spoke softly to Jane and Rakes, who followed. Mademoiselle, monsieur, you are young, passionate. The truth is heavy, but it frees you. Go, live boldly, and let love guide you, not secrets. Jane's eyes were wet, but she nodded. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I didn't want to believe it, but you showed us. Rakes clasped Poirot's hand, his voice firm. You're a hell of a man, Poirot. We'll make things right, for Jane's sake. Poirot smiled, his mustache curving. The world, it needs your fire, monsieur. Use it well. He hailed a cab to London, the manner fading into the mist. At Whitehaven Mansions he spread his clues one last time. The silver thread, the Calcutta note, the photograph, the silver bead, the red wax letter, the diary. The plate was empty, the mystery solved. Mabel would return, safe to testify. Gerda faced justice for Amberiotis. Blunt, the mastermind, would answer for Morley. The crescent pin, Victor Lyle, was a final thread, tied off by Japp's arrest. Pugh sipped a tisane, the warmth soothing his weary bones. The nursery rhyme sang its final note. 1920. My plate is empty, and he felt a quiet triumph. The truth, like a well-cooked dish, had been served, and Hercule Poirot, the chef of justice, was at peace. Complete, satisfying end. Blunt's confession, Mabel's survival, and the diary's revelations tie up all threads, delivering a definitive resolution with emotional weight, leaving listeners fulfilled as Poirot's investigation concludes without loose ends.